Okay, lock in. See you on the story. Not the entire story, just this section. There's lots of stories. Don't worry. Think Weasel was leaning heavily in a chair at a table with his with his feet crossed on the back edge of the tabletop. Think Weasel was seated across his brother with a box of toothpicks in front of him. Think was firing toothpicks into his signature spiral fashion into the small metal grommets into which Think's laces were strung. Think only had one more toothpick to go. Thunk walked over and lifted Think's cap, whispering in his ear. Think slid his own toothpick from one corner of his mouth all the way to the other, saying, "Think, if you shoot one more toothpick in my boots, I swear. Instead, how about you go get those fox broads on the horn and tell them our boiler is ready. Oh, and the director's butter and egg man better have all our C notes in order post haste. Weasels ain't no chumps." Think shot the last toothpick into Think's boot grommet, picked up the phone, and rang the robotic barkeep upstairs. "Yeah, give me the old man," said Think. New scene. Inferno, Bijou, Lignius, and Echo were still watching the hovering and watching around the rim of the massive raw materials cooking pot. The contents had been simmering for a very long time indeed. The mason, who was playing cat's cradle with a thick amber-colored strand that was actually 7 miles of stardust spun together, spoke suddenly. "What's on your mind, Echo?" Echo reflectively clinked, shifting his mirrored scales. Echo did not like being spotted or found out. "I was just thinking." The mason used his enormously large and nimble fingers to manipulate the 7 miles of stardust into the next pattern, saying to Echo, "If you think, and think, and think, you may wear a hole into your heart." "Mason, I don't have a heart," said Echo factually. The mason changed the pattern of the stardust once more while saying, "It is an expression of speech, son." Echo always particularly liked when the mason used that term of endearment, and said, "Thank you, Mason." The mason was now struggling furiously at the 7-mile stardust strand as it had become hopelessly entangled while saying, "Of course." The mason appeared to be seriously frustrated with the stardust tangle, and with the colossal force, he clenched his fists and violently wrenched his hands apart. With a deafening boom, the stardust exploded and scattered everywhere, falling in a slow, thick shower of amber particles. "Clumsy me," said the mason, as stardust landed into the materials cooking pot. The 4 cosmic androids all took defensive-ready positions. The Aquan android, all blue-gray with organometallic skin and quicksilver veins, sat up from the surface of the cooking pot and made one sound. The mason smiled warmly. New scene. Crispin Llewellyn Chandler, director and CEO of Foundry Inc., was having an exceptionally fine morning. Dahlia and Giselle had prepared coffee and fresh peanut butter and chocolate cookies. Ophelia had also sent her squirrel assistant with a gift. After all, today was his birthday. New scene. The 20 Nebulans on Babylon were all playing at the lake today. The lake was surrounded by boulders and smooth, small stones all across the shore, perfect for skipping across the surface of the lake, which happened to be today's game. Talia and Tiana were bored of skipping rocks and were conspiring to steal away to the highly interesting patch of soil that looked like a boot and the ancient oak tree. New scene. Flint and Pinky stopped their shadow theater as they noticed the natural interruption of 6 small paws stretching upward into the light. Pinky smiled at Flint and spoke loud enough for the entire room. "Oh no, dear, if no one is awake, How could we ever finish the story? Simple, my dear, said Flint, grinning broadly. Our family is Danish, not Finnish, so we could not ever finish this story. The three young weasel pups began groaning very loudly and rolling around on the floor. Flint again smooched Pinky and went to fetch 5 more raspberry tarts with sweet oats baked in the crust. All 5 weasels then did jumping jacks for 2 minutes to get their blood moving, and everyone took back their positions on the Shadow Theater continued. New scene. Think, Thank, and Thunk Weasel were in their radioactive, plutonium-powered twin-prop plane going over their pre-flight checklist. The payload of stale, highly unstable crystalline nitroglycerin was loaded and secured from movement in the Bombay compartment. Checklist complete, the brothers stood outside the Pu-94 plane and one last time readied themselves. Think and Thank both had toothpicks between their teeth. In a short time, it'll be goodbye, Babylon. Hello, job security for many more weasels to come, said Think. Then Think looked directly at Thank's toothpick and asked, What are you going to do with that? Thank flicked his tongue ever so slightly so the toothpick spun rapidly in midair, and after chomping, Thank caught the toothpick perfectly while grinning at his brother Think. Why ain't you the cat's meow? Show me how you do that after this job, yeah? Said Think coolly. Thank gave a wink of assurance in his brother and quickly grabbed Think's cap from his head, switched both caps for a new head. Think laughed at Thank. New scene. The director was now in the garden using his forearm touchscreen pad to appear to be an earthworm. He was trying to gain perspective to see whether or not he was being prideful simply because today was his birthday. New scene. Talia and Tiana found an opportunity to take flight, but had to travel in a very roundabout way as Earth was in the far distance off the horizon of Babylon, in the same direction as the stones being skipped across the lake, and all the adults had excellent vision. Reese, Reed, Lachlan, Lennox, Apollo, Atticus, River, Ryder, Penelope, Persephone, Luca, and Liam were now throwing stones into the lake in repeating patterns. What was discovered was that the unique water of Babylon would, when put under extreme duress like this, play literal music due to the changing surface tension. The kids had varied their throwing speeds and patterns, which had made the music permute from one song to the next. Seraphim, Sebastian, Remington, Kensington, Arabella, and Percival were captivated by the musical lake as they had not heard music since the loss of their home planet, Nebulous 9. The adults were so moved that they slowly rose to stand from lounging against the nearby boulders. They also wanted to participate. The Weasels' Pu-94 plane was now approaching Babylon from the opposite hemisphere as the lake. Think spoke through the comm system. Say, I'm loving those big rocks next to the water. Thank altered course slightly, heading directly for the lake and the boulders. The Pu-94 plane went into a hard dive. The payload doors opened and 10 corked glass jugs sailed through the atmosphere. Everyone was now skipping rocks across the musical lake. The resonance was a lot louder than expected. With 10 glass jugs directly overhead of the boulders, now physically whistling through the air, traveling at their terminal velocity of roughly 52 miles an hour. At this moment, Seraphim and Sebastian saw a red streak across the sky directed toward a very small blue dot. Horror froze their faces as they looked at each other. The tympanic concussion that was immediately followed by the blast of heat was sickeningly poetic. The 18 nebulans quickly succumbed to the explosion and the resulting chain reaction of decomposing chlorine and fluorine, which made short work of the entire planet of Babylon. The Weasel's Pu-94 plane could be seen recharting course for Earth. New scene. Doug, the Mason's cousin, had just put in a dispatch call for the 4 cosmic androids. The Aquan android, not yet ready for missions, hovered by the rim of the massive cooking pot with the contents of which were bubbling and warm. The Mason reached into his oversized pocket, retrieved a tiny item, and presented it to Aquan. Aquan took the small paper-wrapped confection in the palm of her hand, stared at it, and looked at the Mason. "It is bubblegum," he said. Aquan blinked and threw the bubblegum sideways into the massive cooking pot. "Don't tell the others," said the Mason. "You are my favorite." Aquan smiled and noticed a warm growth in the chest cavity. The Weasels landed their Pu-94 plane in the outdoor courtyard of Foundry, Inc. Just steps away from the main entrance, Dahlia and Giselle were waiting outside and escorted their new business partners directly past Ophelia and several other employees on an intentional parade on the way to the director's office. Once inside, the scene unfolded thusly. Outside the glass doors on the mezzanine were Talia and Tiana, who were yet unseen. Inside, the director was at his desk with Think, Thank, Thunk, Dahlia, and Giselle assembled in front of him. As the report came in that Babylon had indeed been destroyed, not rejuvenated, tempers on both sides boiled close to violence. Dahlia and Giselle gave the director a timeout to the garden and offered the Weasels coffee and cookies. Talia and Tiana could not comprehend what they had heard, so they just simply flew. Talia and Tiana were now flying in circles, loops, still incredulous. They checked their planetary map multiple times. They couldn't understand. The adults had made these maps themselves. The twins were flying, crisscrossing each other through empty space. After a long while, the truth was slowly settling. Each girl, facing each other, shed a single fluorine tear and wiped each other's faces. Telepathically, they shared a thought. No more tears. Let the wrath sustain us. They tucked away their map and sped off towards Earth. Finding the boot, the girls touched down right in front of Crispin, behind the oak tree and out of view from the mezzanine. "You funny little girls! Am I dreaming?" asked Crispin. Using a shared and singular voice, Talia and Tiana said this dream will be over soon. The twins stripped Crispin down to his skivvies, and Talia asked him a question as Tiana walked away. "What is more dangerous, a weapon or a person?" The director did not answer, so Talia continued. "A neglected detail is the most personally fatal weapon there is because everything cares about something." Tiana walked back, cupping her hands in front of her and raising them over Crispin's head, releasing them and dropping water from the stream on his head. Talia raised her left arm and with her right hand cracked her own iron shell, causing pure fluorine to slowly pour out. Arm dribbling and leaking, Talia said, "Destruction is an art that is only ever useful to illustrate that fact." Talia raised her left wrist over Crispin's head. Crispin immediately went into throes of extreme agony, following that with liquid and sloshing sounds, and finally light hissing noises. Tiana helped Talia close her iron skin back together. Then the girls noticed something. "What is this?" asked Tiana. She had just picked up the forearm touchscreen unit, and it jumped magnetically onto her arm. Tiana felt buzzing, and then Talia started laughing, saying, "You look just like him." "Well, we do have the clothes. I mean, why not?" suggested Tiana. The refreshed director walked back into his office from the mezzanine and spoke loudly and boldly. "Gentlemen, Weasels, please forgive my outburst. I did not expect such results so quickly. The girls will start writing your contracts today." Later, the director had Dahlia and Giselle send the planetary map for framing, and the nameplate on his desk was remade so that it only read Director. Calls to builders were also placed to spruce up the office. When afforded the time, Talia and Tiana would play with their toys behind the large oak tree in the garden. The girls' toys were their memories, as to say their memories with the help of a certain forum touchscreen unit. Talia and Tiana would take turns with the device and change into each of the lost 18 Nebulans that met their end on Babylon. This brought the twins a certain level of catharsis. As the director walked back in to the mezzanine from the garden, Ocean was already waiting inside. The director rubbed his hands together briskly, saying, "Ocean, excellent. I am removing the ceiling from your funding. Now, tell me, what do you think about breakfast cereal in a portable container?" Ocean rubbed his jawline and then smiled a sly smile. Next scene, 3 small weasels were now asleep in blankets on the floor. The only shadow theater that remained were Flint and Pinky smooching with Pinky's tail flitting about.